you cool crooks and killers? Welcome back to True Crime Now, your number one source on the internet for daily true crime videos. Today, we are counting down the top 10 longest jail sentences in history. While there are countless ways to earn yourself some jail time, you have to commit some truly horrific crimes to earn yourself a spot on our countdown. Since the longest of human lives lasts for just over 100 years, it can often seem redundant to pile on hundreds and even thousands of years to a jail sentence. Mostly, this extreme sentencing exists to prove a point related to just how awful these crimes truly were. It also ensures that this person will likely stay in prison no matter what. Number 10. Bob Joe Long. What kind of crime could land you in such hot water that you are sentenced to more time in prison than is even possible to serve by the laws of nature? For Bob Joe Long, these crimes were numerous sexual assaults and murders. Mr. Long immersed himself in an 8-year killing spree in Tampa Bay, Florida, that came to an end in 1984. Every citizen in the area was petrified during the continuous heinous crimes, fearing they'd be next. He kidnapped at least 10 women that he assaulted and later murdered. Fortunately for potential future victims, he actually released a woman named Lisa McAvee after he kidnapped her. This victim went straight to the police and was able to assist them in finally arresting this horrible serial killer. In 1985, the sentence for Bob Joe Long came out to 28 consecutive life sentences. If you think that's a long time, just wait until you hear about our number one longest jail sentence, where a criminal receives a prison sentence almost 200 times longer than that for their horrendous crimes. Number 9. Billy Joe Godfrey. From 1995 to 1999, Billy Joe Godfrey attacked and assaulted 2 children ages 8 and 13. The prosecutor in charge of trying this case stated that the sexual abuse these children underwent at the hands of Godfrey was the most appalling he has seen in his entire career. These 2 brave individuals finally came forward to accuse Billy Joe 15 years after the attacks took place. Formal charges were filed against him in 2014. Both adults at this point, the victims told their stories to a jury in detail about the gruesome constant sexual assaults they had to endure. In 2015, Godfrey was found guilty of all charges and was sentenced to 35 life sentences in prison. That's 1,050 years. Number 8. Martin Bryant. The incident for which Martin Bryant received his jail sentence for was also known as the Port Arthur Massacre, in reference to the place where he went on a shooting frenzy. 35 people were fatally shot that day in 1996, and 23 more are injured during this evil act. While Bryant's sanity was debated over after his several suicide attempts inside the prison, he was ultimately convicted for mass murder in the year 1996. He was sentenced to serve 1,035 years or 35 life sentences in prison. Bryant also sits on death row for carrying out one of the most terrorizing shootings in history. Number 7. Rene Lopez. Sexual abuse is unacceptable and traumatizing in any situation, but this criminal took this horrifying act to a whole new level when he made the decision to assault his own daughter. Rene Lopez sexually abused his daughter for over 4 long years, and she had no one she felt she could talk to about what she was going through at the hands of her own father. He even let his friends partake in sexually abusing his daughter. The role of a father should be to protect his family at all costs, but this lousy excuse for a father did just the opposite. As punishment for his unspeakable crimes, Lopez actually received the longest prison sentence ever given out by the Fresno Superior Court. He was sentenced with 1,503 years of imprisonment in the year 2014 for child abuse and the heartless crimes committed against his family. Number 6. James Egan Holmes. Unfortunately, most of us are all too familiar with the heinous act carried out by James Holmes in Aurora, Colorado. He went on a shooting spree during a screening of a Batman movie, The Dark Knight Rises, and gunned down the audience. He even set off tear gas grenades to prevent the people from running out. 12 people were killed during the incident and another 70 individuals were injured. In addition to his sentencing for each crime committed against almost 100 people, Holmes earned a separate life sentence for every victim who died. At the end of the trial, Holmes was convicted of mass murder and was sentenced to imprisonment for 3,318 years plus 12 life sentences. We are halfway through our list, and I can't believe these jail sentences can get even longer. Let us know in the comments if you like this type of video and if you have any ideas for future videos. Number 5. Charles Scott Robinson. Though he is only number 5 for the longest jail sentence in history, Charles Robinson earned his place in the top spot for the longest jail sentence in U.S. history. He was tried for and found guilty of sexually abusing a 3-year-old girl. The sentence given to him was 5,000 years in prison for the 6 counts of sexual assault. The jury ensured that there was no way he could ever walk free again, as his first chance to file for parole is not until he turns 108 years old. Number 4. Dudley Wayne Kaiser. This notorious murderer was actually sentenced twice because his original sentence of death was denied by the state. Kaiser actually had to sit through another trial entirely in order to be resentenced. His trials took place in 1977 and 1981, and prosecutors told the stories of how this natural-born killer murdered his own wife, mother-in-law, and a random college student. While the verdict was still the same, guilty, he received what was considered to be a lesser sentence than death, 10,000 years in prison plus 3 life sentences, 1 for each victim. Number 3. Alan Wayne McClure and Darren Anderson. These 2 monsters were arrested for raping and sodomizing a newlywed who had to endure the attack for several hours. They were later found guilty of additional unrelated crimes, including burglary, larceny, and robbery. After their initial appeal, a second trial that was conducted, and the 2 men were actually given a higher number of years of imprisonment. The prison sentences for McClure and Anderson were 20,000 years and 11,000 years, respectively. Number 2. Atman Nawi, Jamel Zugam, and Emilio Suarez tras horas. All the way from Spain, our second on the longest jail sentences in history can be traced back to 2004. You may be familiar with the incident that later became known as the Madrid train bombing. These 3 men were involved in the mass killing of almost 200 people and injuring at least 2,000 more. Zugam and Nawi both received an enormous amount of jail time for their times, totaling 42,924 years each. Tras horas, the man who got off light with his sentencing only received 34,215 years for his involvement. All 3 are convicted mass murderers and terrorists. Wow! It's hard to wrap your head around just how long that is. But longer still, our number 1 longest jail sentence more than quadruples that number. Number 1. Chamoy Te Piazzo. At the top of our list, the longest jail sentence ever recorded in history was handed down in Thailand. Surprisingly, this convict is the only woman on our list. She was arrested for multiple counts of fraud through a pyramid scheme that went on for years. This fraudulent activity impacted over 16,000 people all over the country and world, and she was valued at over $200 million at the height of the scam. When she was finally caught, she was sentenced to serve a whopping 141,078 years in prison. As far as we can tell, that's going to be a pretty tough record to beat. There you have it, the top 10 longest jail sentences in history. Were there any of you who thought that these were too harsh? Let us know in the comments. Let us know if you like this video, and make sure to subscribe and turn on that notification bell. True Crime Now puts on new videos every single day related to all things in the world of true crime. Until next time, don't be embarrassed to sleep with the lights on.